Thank you, Marchant. Yeah, I do have a qualification in education as well, so it's not only in town planning, and that formed a very small part of my career. I don't know where the slideshow is, but I want to start this morning with a quote by Mother Teresa. She says, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." And so Etienne and I have the privilege of fellowshipping with Etienne in a small group, and we chat occasionally. And we were chatting once about this thing of mine. I talk about success rather than significance, and Etienne thought, no pressure, let's ask Mike to talk about this in a bit more depth. Success and significance, they intertwine, they go hand in hand. Success typically defined as the achievement of a goal or an objective, an outcome, often associated with accomplishments such as wealth and power, perhaps fame, career advancements, personal achievements, quite often measured in tangible terms, particularly in the secular sense. Societal status, professional recognition, and everything else. So the fact that you mentioned my master's degree puts me under a lot of pressure from that perspective. So yeah, in that sense, people will look and say, "Mike, you've had success." But for me, I really prefer to focus on the concept of significance, which is having a meaningful impact or importance, or meaningful impact and importance of one's actions, contributions, or existence. Goes beyond what I call mere success and encompasses perhaps a deeper sense of purpose, of value, and really about a legacy that hopefully one leaves behind. And for me, it's about making a positive difference in the lives of people that we encounter on a daily basis, leaving a lasting impression. And I'm humbled, Marchant, that you say you look up to me as a role model in education. And yeah, significance should be, I believe, aligned with your beliefs and involves contributing to the greater good. It extends into meaningful relationships, leaving a positive legacy that extends beyond your personal achievements or your material possessions. So in essence, while success focuses on specific goals or outcomes, significance emphasizes the impact, the broader purpose, impact, and the meaning of those achievements. Significance for me is about relationships and legacy, while success may bring temporary satisfaction. Significance provides a deeper sense of fulfillment. As a sort of a brief summary, I'd like to illustrate with two examples, and I think if we can move on to the first slide. Howard Hughes, businessman, movie producer, aviator, portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio in that movie, The Aviator. Perhaps best remembered for spending a multi-millionaire, probably a billionaire, but probably best remembered for spending his later years as an eccentric, exclusive billionaire. Locked away in his studio with OCD, alone, in despair, and so wealthy that it took years to work out what his actual wealth was, but yet so poor in spiritual and emotional wealth. And then, in comparison, a gentleman called Robert Gilmore Le Tournier, born about 1888, died in 1969, a prolific inventor of earth-moving machinery. And it's said that 70% of earth-moving equipment used in World War II was invented by Robert Le Tournier, or his company produced that equipment. He was responsible for over 300 patents. With the help of his wife, he established what became known as the Le Tournier University, a Christian university, in Longview, Texas, in the USA. He was a devout Christian, and very generous philanthropist to Christian causes, including the Letournier Christian Center as well as the university. A multimillionaire, yet he gave 90% of his profits to philanthropic endeavors. Hughes was an empire builder. Letournier was a kingdom builder. Yet he was a successful businessman. But here and now, I don't think any of us have that sort of wealth. And so one could look and say, well, Letournier was able to be significant because he had so much wealth. We can't necessarily be empire builders, but we can certainly be kingdom builders. We don't have the wealth of these men, but we can be kingdom builders. So how do we do that? Well, I believe we look to make an impact on the lives of people around us by building into their lives positively. Why? Well, now, because I became a Christian late in life, only at the age of 20, there's scriptures that I believe highlight that. Highlight the virtues such as humility and service. Philippians 2 verses 3 to 4 says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." James 4 verse 10 says, "Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up." In terms of service, Mark 10 verse 45, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many." And Galatians 5:13 says, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. But do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh, rather serve one another humbly in love." 1 Peter 4 verse 10 says, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." And so for me now, these scriptures provide a very solid biblical background for discussing the virtues of humility, service, and stewardship, emphasizing the importance for me of aligning these principles as a follower of Christ. They serve as reminders of our call to live selflessly, to serve others with love, and to steward the resources and talents that God entrusted to us for his purposes and glory. In other words, to be significant. On a personal level, I prefer to consider myself as being significant rather than successful. I'm definitely not down crying success. I'm definitely not saying striving to be successful is wrong. I just believe that success and significance are inextricably linked. And I personally believe in holding myself accountable to being significant. More often than not, I think people can be considered as being successful in their significance. The reverse, being successful first, does not necessarily imply significance. Robert Letournier is an example of somebody who was successful and used that for great significance. I wonder if we could put the slide up of those two lovely people there. So what is my inspiration to be significant? I grew up in Cape Town in what many would consider to be a very humble home. Both my parents didn't finish matric. My dad served 5.5 years in the Second World War. That took it out of him. He's there, he's about 72 there. He was an old 72. Yet, my mother and father were an inspiration to me, and are an inspiration to me to be significant. I believe that I learned my desire, my sort of inner core desire to be significant from them. I believe my desire to serve others, I really learned from them. Sometimes when we were growing up, my two brothers and I, we sort of accused my parents of being generous to a fault. But we never resented that, though, because we saw the sacrifices that they made to put us through school and university and take us on holidays. We actually, we more importantly observed, though, the impact, the positive difference that they made in the lives of others. We sometimes would joke that my father would give somebody the shirts off our backs if he saw the need. And so almost subliminally, they taught us to serve, to be significant, because that was our purpose in life. So Mom and Dad were very successful in teaching their sons that the purpose in life is to be significant, to help others. And we somehow knew it encompasses a deeper purpose, a value, a legacy that left behind. The legacy that they leave behind, I believe, is standing before you today. And all of this, I think you might be surprised to know, was not in a Christian home. We didn't grow up in a Christian home. I firmly believed that Christians were hypocrites because that's what my father said. Our neighbor was a churchgoer, but come 12 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon at the braai, after probably half a bottle of brandy, the language there wasn't quite what we heard. So that's the context I grew up in. For us, church was about 4 weddings and a funeral. That was the time that we went to church. But I share that with you just to hopefully give a context of where my deep-seated desire to serve others and significance came from. They were truly wonderful people. My mother, I actually posted this picture on Facebook last night, and the responses were automatic from friends, just saying, real gentleman, real lady. They were so important in my life because our home was the home that you would come to, because often some of my friends wouldn't come and visit me. They would actually come and visit my mom and my dad because they were just such wonderful people. Yet they, despite not having a Christian base, and they both came to faith very late in life, which obviously is a comfort. But they instilled in their 3 sons such a deep sense of morality and purpose. And, I'm just so grateful for that. And, as I said, I hope that shares a context of where I feel, oh, that's not mine, good. So success typically, as I used the definition earlier, is defined as the achievement of a goal, an objective, or a desired outcome, and is associated with accomplishments and wealth and power and possessions. But it's very subjective. It can be dependent upon the environment that you're in. And I think folk will look at me, and in a secular sense, but Mike, you are successful, especially in tangible, materialistic terms. And that's probably true. I do have a house, and my children are well looked after, and I'm financially well looked after, So, in that secular sense, people will say, I've been successful. But I really hope that that's as a result of me trying to be significant, almost a byproduct of trying to be significant. Because I don't believe I've pursued worldly wealth, but yet I have it. I'm probably in the top 5% of people in the world. But that hasn't been a focus for me. And I'm not trying to say that to be impressive, because one of the things my father said to me, he says, Mike, go out to imprint rather than to try and impress. And that's really stuck with me around that. Because I believe that first and foremost, to be significant, you need to be believable. In Romans 2, verse 12, I think we can bring that slide up. It says, do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may discern what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. And so by not conforming to the things of this world, we display a sincerity and are believable. The scripture goes on to encourage us to serve the Lord and to share with people in need and to do so joyfully. But the people around us must believe that of us. It should not be for show, but out of a sincerity to serve the Lord. People can see if we are a fraud. In a reading from Thessalonians, and I'm not too sure of the chapter, but I think it's coming up. Yeah, it's 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 15. It says, we urge you, brothers, and warn those who are idle. We urge you, brothers, warn those who are idle, encourage the timid, help the weak, be patient with everyone. Make sure nobody pays back wrong for wrong, but always try to be kind to each other and to everyone else. Now that is significance. There's no greater instruction for me than that. That's the significance we can achieve here and now and on a daily basis. The scripture goes on to encourage us to be joyful and to pray continually. That too is significance here and now and on a daily basis. Because it's about making a positive impact in the lives of other people. And please don't misunderstand me, and I know I'm repeating myself. I'm not saying success is wrong. I simply believe that the pursuit of success for self-gain is not within the will of God. Success can often be self-focused, whereas the foundation for significance is relationship. Significance is about purpose-driven living, firstly. True significance, I believe, comes from aligning oneself with God's will and serving others with love and compassion. Secondly, significance for me is about community and relationships. The importance of building connections based on shared values, support, and genuine care for others. I go back to my father, who I don't know what he endured in the 5.5 years up north. But he just always displayed a genuine care and compassion for others. And I found that so hard to kind of grasp, because 5 years of, I don't know. I've never been in a war, but 5 years of tragedy, of death, of anything else, and yet he comes out and still his inner being is to care and be compassionate. And so, significance is about legacy and eternal impact. And while my father only had a faith shortly before he passed away, he left a legacy. And I believe that for us, we need to leave a legacy and an eternal impact by investing in activities and initiatives that have a lasting eternal impact, such as spreading the message of faith, nurturing spiritual growth, and advancing social justice and equality. I also believe that one should strive for excellence with integrity. I think it's important that we strive for excellence in our professional endeavors, but with a need to maintain integrity, humility, and ethical conduct at all times. I think the best definition I heard of humility is probably here. It's that humility is acknowledging that anything that you do is because of God. And I think that's just the best definition of humility. True success is not really measured by financial wealth. And note, I'm saying true success, but by the characters and the values that we uphold in our personal and professional lives. I was lucky. I am lucky, because I always wanted to be a teacher. Yes, my time in education spans 5 decades, from the 80s to now. But there was a time that I was out of education in construction management, town planning, even entrepreneurial dabbling by importing second-hand cell phones. But I always wanted to be a teacher. And my sister-in-law was angry with me for the years that I spent out of education, because she said, you are a teacher through and through. And I always wanted to be a teacher, and thus I had inspiring teachers at school and real role models. And through them, their role model, their example, when I was in the classroom, I really strived to teach, not only deliver content and curriculum, but to positively influence the lives of those that I taught or coached or were under my care in the classroom. So people have asked me, why then did you move into leadership and management? My motivation, and I can quote from letters of application, and I can, perhaps, if there were, play recordings of interviews. My motivation is that I wanted to be significant on a broader scale in education. I wanted to be able to influence teachers to be significant, or influence more teachers to be significant in the classroom, and thus impact more children that they taught. And thus significance in education spreading broader. I'm standing before you today saying, I really miss my time in the classroom and on the sports field. So significance for me is not about doing the good things, well, it is about doing good things, but for the right reasons, to the glory of God and not for your own gain. And I repeat what my father used to say to me, make sure you are out to imprint, not just to impress. And when preparing for this and researching, I came across the messages that a teacher received by 2 students. And I think it highlights that one not need be a Robert Le Tournier to have a significant influence on the life of others. The first student wrote to this teacher after a prize giving, and this student writes, I've not been up to the prize giving podium so much in all my school years put together, and I can truthfully say that you were the cause of this achievement outburst. Goes on a little bit later to say, but you were the one who believed in me and spurred me on. So thank you. And then with delightful sense of humor. And when I'm president, I'll dedicate a library to you or something. Ha, ha, ha. The second student says, thank you for being a brilliant teacher to us. Your hard work and encouragement has been much appreciated. You have equipped us with knowledge and wisdom and allowed us to reach way beyond our potential because of your drive, your own drive and motivation you passed on to us. You are truly a man, a person of God, and a role model to us all. I can only imagine how good that teacher feels. I know that in my teaching career, it might take 10 years or even 20 years for somebody to acknowledge that you were a significant influence in their life. I remember the first bit of really meaningful feedback I had in my first teaching position. A young man came to me and said, when he left Matric, he said, I just want to thank you for teaching me how to think. And that was really powerful. He went on to eventually become headmaster of that school that I taught at, and then moved on to be headmaster of a top boys' school down in the Cape. And I know that I played a significant part in his life, and that's really what it was about. But this teacher that I read about was believable and obviously had a significant impact on the lives of these students. Being believable and looking to teach beyond the classroom door has impacted how we at my school have put together a vision to not merely deliver curriculum, but to educate with the purpose of preparing children for life in the real world. And currently at school, we are engaged in what the group, because I think you might know that Kiro is a listed company, a group nationally. The group is engaged in performance conversations. It is not a performance review process. It's really a conversation with a line manager about a self-assessment of how one is performing in their role, feels they are in their role, what they need, what help they can do, what they perceive, and perhaps how the organization or the line manager can assist in helping them in their role. This week I've met with 3 folk. In the questionnaire they asked how they see success in their role in the organization. You can tell I didn't draw up the questionnaire because I would have asked about significance rather than success. And all three sat in front of me, quite puzzled, because they fill in the questionnaire beforehand and then we discuss it and we go through it. And they found that quite a difficult question to answer. One's the school counselor, one is the facilities manager, another person works in admin and does an amazing job there. They found it a difficult question to answer and generally referred to goals or tasks that they were able to complete, or targets, and generally on a broad scale. How did they succeed? How did they see their success in the organization? I think that on a daily basis can be quite daunting, to go home at night and reflect on what did I achieve today. I perhaps didn't finish this task. I perhaps didn't get this area of lawn properly cut under my supervision. And that can, if we sort of self-reflect at the end of the day and we look back and we say, well, today perhaps really I wasn't successful. And I think sometimes that can be quite demoralizing if we are task-orientated or driven, and that can create, I think, unnecessary stress. So I challenge these three members of staff to rather reflect on how they've been significant in somebody's life that day. Was there a kind word that they offered? Was there a helpful gesture? Did they empty a bin in a teacher's classroom that the teacher appreciated? And it was like a light bulb moment for them. It was a wow moment. I asked them, have you today made a positive difference in someone's life? And they were really taken aback. And it really became a wow moment for them. So it genuinely turned their frowns into smiles as they realized that significance was so easily achievable. And that they could see that as a success, probably every day. Because significance is relationship-driven. Success, in a secular sense, is task-driven. Jesus was relationship-driven and not task-driven. And so significance is so achievable. Rick Warren, in his book, The Purpose-Driven Life, if you can go on to the next slide, I think he starts with the 4 words, it's up to you. And I've changed those words to be significant. Rick Warren writes, it's not about you. And I've changed that to say, it's up to you. And so I'd like to just conclude this morning with 3 quotes of people who are quite significant and have had a significant impact in the world. Mother Teresa says, a life not lived for others is not a life. Nelson Mandela says, what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead. And then lastly, I don't think this slide got through last night to Etienne. One of my favorite authors is John Maxwell. And he says, significance is choosing to enter the arena of action, determined to give yourself to that cause that will better humanity and last. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. It was really amazing. I loved the talk. I think, but I think your life speaks louder than your words. If one speak to his colleagues and the kids in school, they love Mike, and he is significant in their lives. So I think it's an encouragement for all of us, even to go out today. It's Friday. Nobody works on a Friday anyway. So go and stick somebody for a cup of coffee. Maybe phone somebody and encourage that person. Take your wife some flowers. Let's have a significant day. And I really think that some of those quotes will stay with me forever. The one that you said, please don't imprint, don't impress, but imprint. It's a life-changing idea, and I'm going to live with that for a long time. We do have 5 minutes or so. If there's anybody who'd like to ask a question, We have Mike here, so now's your opportunity. He was a geography teacher, so if you want to ask a geography question, it's also fine. I'll allow that. See, anybody wants to ask something? You're welcome also to afterwards. We're going to, there's a Didi.
I really can't answer that question. It was just such a deep-seated caring for others. You know, he was chairman of the school governing body at the primary school, but purely to serve. And so I genuinely can't understand that. I mean, he didn't finish matric. He worked for the same company for 35 years when he came back. He basically, at the age of 12, was working, you know, selling chocolates in the movie theaters. He was born in 1920, so you know times were tough then. It's a fascinating question that I don't have an answer for, but I'm just so grateful for that and for that example and legacy. He worked in the deciduous fruit board. And he worked in the import and export, well, the export department. So he was involved in quality control. So they would, and in those days, most of the fruit was shipped. And so they would take boxes of fruit off the ships, put it in cold storage, and then open it up so that when it arrived in the UK or in Europe, they would examine it and see what the quality of the fruit was. And so there was this there was always lots of fruit that we had, and Dad would bring that home and just give it out, you know. And people on Fridays would literally sort of walk past the house, kind of one eye, knowing that Eric would be there, ready to give fruit away. I mean, my grandfather served in both wars, so that was my dad's example as well. And I can only think that it's just sort of a deep-seated, in a sense, humility, because very, very humble beginnings for my dad, and pretty humble beginnings for us. But yeah, I just think a really deep-seated. I think it's God. I think, you know, God used him even though he wasn't a believer then. Yeah.
Sorry, just to follow up on that. So, this purpose series, obviously encouraged to go and see a real need.
Mm.
Just wondering, as attached to that, potentially through this day, just really see who the God people are going to.
Yeah.
Maybe that triggered it. So that's where that question is.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct that Dad would see the need of people around him above his own needs. He would always sacrifice more than he had, but to meet people's needs. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Yeah, you've answered a question for me.